I just got finished watching the Anthony Joshua Joseph Parker press conference. This is Tuesday, so I'm not sure if they're going to have another press conference later on in the week before the weigh-in. Maybe some of you guys could fill me in. But I just want to give my impressions of how it went. First of all, there was a amusing little exchange between the two promoters, Eddie Hearn and Joseph Parker's promoter, David Higgins. I don't know if it was scripted or not, but whatever the case may be, it was pretty amusing. Then the two trainers, Anthony Joshua's trainer, Robert McCracken, and Joseph Parker's trainer, Kevin Barry, had a few words to say. I thought that Robert McCracken was having a few little sly, subliminal digs at Joseph Parker and his team. Robert McCracken talked about the fact that one of the reasons the fans love Anthony Joshua is because he always delivers. Whatever he says he's going to do before the fight, he delivers it in the ring, both in terms of the result and the quality of the performance or the entertainment value of the performance. Whereas Joseph Parker, again in the words of Robert McCracken, doesn't always deliver. He's had subpar performances where his pre-fight talk did not live up to what manifested in the ring. So that was a little dig. But then, moving on to the actual fighters and how they came across and what they said. This is obviously a massive event. There is enormous fan and media interest worldwide for this particular fight. So the obvious question is, how will both fighters cope with this type of pressure, fighting on such a massive stage? Well, Anthony Joshua has been fighting in front of enormous crowds with massive media interest from his pro debut. In fact, before his pro debut, when he was in the Olympics, he was dealing with fighting in front of large crowds, dealing with press, media interest, etc. And as a professional, the crowds have gotten progressively bigger. The media interest has gotten progressively more intense, and the pressure has gotten progressively more intense because of that, and because of the fact that his level of opposition has been stepping up and up and up in a relatively short space of time. Anthony Joshua is only 20 fights in as a professional. So when you consider the fact that he has fought in front of 80,000 fans, 90,000 fans, etc., fighting people like Klitschko and Takam, at this point, I cannot believe that there is anything from a psychological point of view in terms of what the opponent can do, in terms of the impact of the event. I don't believe there is any factor which could disturb Anthony Joshua mentally at this point, which could unnerve him in terms of anything his opponent can say or do before the fight, or any amount of media attention or crowd attention. Joshua at this point he has the mentality of a veteran in that sense, dealing with pressure. Yeah, pressure is not going to get to Anthony Joshua at all. He's already dealt with it. He's shown what he's made of mentally. And Joseph Parker, he hasn't been in an event as big as this before. But looking at Joseph Parker's demeanor at this press conference, he appears to be extremely relaxed and extremely confident. I did not get the air of a man who was overwhelmed by the situation that he's in. I got the air of a man who's very calm, very confident. With that being said, there's a difference between sitting down at a table for a press conference and walking into a stadium with 80,000 hostile fans booing him. That is a big difference. So it remains to be seen how he copes with that. But the early signs, judging by how he looked at the press conference, were that Joseph Parker might actually cope very, very well with it. He might be cut from the same kind of cloth as Anthony Joshua mentally, where he's very strong in these type of situations. And the fact that Joseph Parker wanted to take this fight, because he didn't have to, he could have milked his belt for however long. he wanted to take this Anthony Joshua unification. That says a lot about him. The fact that he wanted this fight. So hopefully Joseph Parker doesn't freeze. He's not overwhelmed by the magnitude of the event and therefore can produce his best possible performance. That's what I want to see. I'll be interested to see the weights of both guys at the weigh-in on Friday, how heavy they both are. It's difficult to tell when guys have got their tops on exactly whether they've lost weight or gained weight. It's difficult. It can be misleading when you see a guy with a baggy t-shirt on. It can make it look like he's lost weight, and he takes his t-shirt off, and he's put on weight. I've been caught out by that a couple of times. Don't want to make the same mistake again. So I'll be interested to see what they're both weighing in at. If Joseph Parker comes in significantly lighter, and I'm talking about 6, 7, 8, 10 pounds lighter than he has of late, then clearly he's gone for the extra speed. Clearly he's trying to go back to the Joseph Parker of a couple of years ago, who really was an explosive speed merchant. Not the Joseph Parker who looked plodding and cumbersome against Hughie Fury. So I'll be interested to see their weight. Same with Joshua. For me, he's been getting way too high in terms of his weight. Career heaviest against Carlos Takam. I believe it slows him down, particularly his foot speed. I think Joshua's hand speed does slow down when he adds more weight, but I think it's the foot speed which slows down more significantly than the hand speed. And when you're dealing with a guy like Joseph Parker, who in the past has proved that he can move around and has shown good foot speed, it's going to be important for Joshua to be mobile, to be able to catch up with Joseph Parker if Joseph Parker's fighting on the back foot. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. There wasn't really much insults or anything like that traded between the two fighters. They were respectful, but they both looked confident. They both looked relaxed, particularly Joseph Parker. He looked very, very relaxed, very confident. I have seen some people online saying Anthony Joshua looked nervous and he looked scared and all this kind of stuff. I do not buy it at all. Anthony Joshua's been here, he's seen it, he's done it. There was probably more pressure on him in the Klitschko fight because he was going into the unknown against Klitschko. He was going into the ring against a highly seasoned campaigner who was by far the most skilled fighter Anthony Joshua had ever faced. Amateur or pro, probably. Whereas with Joseph Parker, he's facing somebody who doesn't have the wealth of experience, who doesn't have the proven track record of a Vladimir Klitschko. So I don't see why Joshua would be nervous of facing somebody like him. Look at Joshua's mental makeup. Look at what he's been through already in his career. This is not a guy who's going to be afraid of Joseph Parker or anybody else for that matter. He's clearly made a very stern staff mentally. So, yeah, I don't think there's really much you can take from how the fighters came across at the press conference, other than they're both confident. That's what I saw. Joshua looked the same as he normally looks. Joshua is a little awkward on camera. He's always been like that. Other than when he does interviews with Kugan Cassius, he always comes across to me as a little awkward. And that's how he normally is. It's not like he's acting out of character. And I know people say it's not his real character, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm trying to tell you is, go back and look at Joshua before most of his previous fights. He behaves exactly the same as he's behaving prior to this fight here with Joseph Parker. So, I don't think there's anything to read into there. I think Joshua's the same as ever, just as confident as ever, if not more so. Parker looks very confident. So hopefully we're going to get two guys at the peak of their powers fighting to the absolute best of their abilities. And may it turn out to be a good fight. That's what I'm hoping. A great fight, potentially. I've said for a long time that we are now in a new golden age of heavyweight boxing. I had a few naysayers talking this, that, and the other. Look, I've been around following heavyweight boxing and following boxing in general long enough to know what I'm talking about here. When I talk about golden age of heavyweight boxing, I'm not necessarily saying these guys are the greatest heavyweights of all time, that they're as good as the guys from the 90s or the 70s. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's going to be a golden age because we're in an era now where we're not going to have one dominant champion who's going to wipe everybody out. We're going to have a situation where people like Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, Wilder, and several other guys are going to be swapping wins and losses with each other in a similar way to how the fighters in the 90s did, in a similar way to how the heavyweights in the 70s did. They were swapping wins and losses with each other. It wasn't one dominant guy. Ali was the guy who stands out from the 70s, but he took losses in the 70s. He lost to Joe Frazier. He lost to Ken Norton. Yeah? He had very tough fights. It's not like it was just plain sailing for him. He was in the wilderness for a while without the heavyweight title. This is what's going to happen in this era with the likes of Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker, etc., etc. It's going to be highly competitive. It's not going to be like the Klitschko era, where it was just the two brothers and nobody could really do anything to them. It's not going to be like the Tyson era in the 80s prior to him fighting Buster Douglas, where he was just sweeping through everybody and there was no one on his level. It's not going to be like that. Yeah, it's going to be much more competitive. It's going to be much more exciting, and the fights are going to be more memorable. What fights were memorable in terms of competitiveness, in terms of being classics in the Tyson era? Between when he fought Burbick and when he fought Douglas. I mean, the Douglas fight was the best fight he was ever in as champion. And that's the one he lost. But even that, you wouldn't say it was a classic. Holyfield Bowl, that was a classic trilogy. Ali Frazier, classic trilogy. We're going to have fights which will go down in history as memorable. We've already had one in Joshua Klitschko. In fact, prior to that, Joshua had a very memorable fight with Dillian Whyte. Even Dillian Whyte has had a memorable fight with Chisora. I'm not comparing these necessarily to, Ali Frazier, Bo Holyfield, but these are fights that are going to be remembered. These are fights that were exciting. You understand? And that's what this era is going to be about in heavyweight boxing. It's going to be an exciting era. It's going to be a dramatic era. It's going to be an era where all these heavyweights are swapping wins and losses with each other. And that is for the benefit of the fans. We're going to enjoy ourselves watching the drama unfold. And will Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker be another one of those fights? Remains to be seen. But the ingredients are there because you've got the bigger guy in Anthony Joshua, like a Riddick Bowe. He's not as slick or smooth as Bowe. Don't get it twisted. They're different fighters, but he's got different attributes to Riddick Bowe. He does some things better than Riddick Bowe, some things not as well. But generically speaking, he's the big guy like Riddick Bowe. Joseph Parker, the smaller guy, faster guy like Holyfield. There are some stylistic similarities, maybe vague similarities, but some stylistic and physical similarities between Joshua Parker and Holyfield and Bowe. Hopefully they gel. The styles and whatnot gel together as well as Holyfield and Bowe did. Holyfield and Bowe, whenever they got in the ring, it was always compelling viewing. Hopefully we get the same with Joshua Parker. Maybe that could turn into a trilogy. We'll see. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you felt about the press conference and how you feel about this upcoming fight. All right, it's Hatman. I'm out.